I'm Abigail Matthews, 32, a marketing executive with a peaceful life in Boston that I've worked incredibly hard to build. Every Christmas, my sister Heather pulls the same stunt, assuming I'll drop everything to watch her three kids while she gets a much-needed break. This year was different. When she announced her Caribbean cruise plans at our family dinner and volunteered me as the babysitter, I finally stood my ground and said no. I had no idea that decision would lead to three children being abandoned on my doorstep Christmas Eve. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're viewing from, hit subscribe, and stay tuned to find out how standing your ground can lead to unexpected challenges and growth. I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, about an hour outside of Boston. Our family wasn't wealthy, but my parents worked hard to provide a comfortable life for me and my older sister, Heather. From an early age, it was clear that Heather was the golden child in our family. She was beautiful, sociable, and followed the traditional path our parents had always envisioned for their daughters. She married her high school sweetheart, Brian, at 22 and had her first child by 24. I was different. I had ambitions that extended beyond our small town. While Heather was planning her wedding, I was applying to business schools. When she was decorating her nursery, I was interviewing for my first corporate position in Boston. My parents never said it directly, but their disappointment in my choices was palpable. Every achievement in my career was met with a lukewarm, "That's nice, dear," followed quickly by, "Did you hear Heather is expecting again?" By the time I turned 30, I had established myself as a senior marketing executive at one of Boston's top firms. I owned my condo, had a small but loyal circle of friends, and enjoyed the independence I had worked so hard to achieve. Heather, meanwhile, had three children: Mason, the serious 9-year-old who always had his nose in a book; Lily, the artistic 7-year-old with boundless energy; and Caleb, the sweet 5-year-old who still needed help tying his shoes. I loved my niece and nephews. Despite the tension between Heather and me, I made efforts to be present in their lives. I attended their birthday parties, school plays, and soccer games whenever I could. I sent thoughtful gifts and took them for special outings when I visited. But there was a pattern that had developed over the years, a pattern of Heather assuming my time and resources were at her disposal. It started small. "Abby, can you pick up Mason from school? I have a hair appointment." Or, "Can you take Lily for the weekend? Brian and I need some alone time." These requests always came at the last minute, always presented as emergencies, and always with the expectation that I would say yes. The Christmas babysitting had become an annual tradition. 3 years ago, Heather and Brian decided they needed a romantic getaway during the holidays. They dropped the kids at my apartment 2 days before Christmas, with minimal supplies and vague instructions. I canceled my plans with friends and scrambled to create a magical Christmas for the children. The following year, it was a ski trip with friends. Again, I adjusted my schedule and put my life on hold. Last Christmas was the worst. Heather called me on December 23rd to inform me that she and Brian had won a 4-day spa package and would be dropping the kids off in an hour. I had been planning to fly to Chicago the next morning to spend Christmas with my best friend, Laura. The tickets were non-refundable. When I tried to explain this to Heather, she burst into tears. "You're so selfish, Abby. You only think about yourself. What am I supposed to do with the kids? This package was expensive, and it's non-refundable too." Our parents sided with her, of course. "Family comes first, Abigail," my mother said sternly. "Heather deserves a break. She's a mother." I caved. I canceled my trip, lost the money on the flight, and disappointed Laura. The kids were wonderful as always, but the resentment I felt toward my sister festered. I spent New Year's alone after returning the children, nursing a glass of wine and making a resolution: no more. No more dropping everything for Heather's convenience. No more being taken advantage of. No more putting my life on hold. Brian, Heather's husband, was largely absent from these conflicts. He was a quiet man who worked long hours at his accounting firm and seemed content to let Heather make all the family decisions. The few times I tried to speak with him directly about the babysitting issues, he would nod sympathetically but ultimately defer to whatever Heather wanted. As for the children, they were caught in the middle of this dynamic. Mason was old enough to sense the tension between his mother and me. During last Christmas's impromptu babysitting, he had asked me quietly, "Aunt Abby, are you mad that we're here?" The question broke my heart. I assured him that I was never upset with him or his siblings, just frustrated with the adults' poor planning. Lily was blissfully unaware of the undercurrents, simply happy to spend time with her aunt who let her paint and didn't mind the mess. Caleb, still so little, just wanted cuddles and stories and someone to check for monsters under the bed. I loved these kids fiercely. That was never in question. But as the new year progressed, I began setting small boundaries with Heather. I declined last-minute babysitting requests. I stopped answering her calls after 9 p.m. I made plans that couldn't be easily canceled. Each boundary was met with resistance, guilt trips, angry texts, calls from our parents questioning my commitment to family. But I held firm, and slowly, my sister seemed to adjust to the new normal. Or so I thought. Our parents' home was decorated as it always was for Christmas, the same artificial tree in the corner, adorned with ornaments dating back to our childhood, the same garland draped over the fireplace, the same nativity scene on the mantel. The familiarity was both comforting and stifling as I pulled into the driveway for our traditional pre-Christmas dinner, 2 weeks before the holiday. I arrived bearing gifts, a bottle of my father's favorite whiskey and a casserole to contribute to the meal. Mason, Lily, and Caleb rushed to greet me at the door, their faces bright with excitement. "Aunt Abby." Lily threw her arms around my waist. "Did you bring your special cookies?" I laughed, producing a tin of homemade gingerbread. Would I forget? "Aunt Abby, I got the highest score in my class on the math test," Mason informed me solemnly, adjusting his glasses. "That's amazing, buddy. I knew all that practice would pay off." Caleb tugged at my coat. "Can you read me a story later? The one about the train?" "Absolutely, as soon as dinner's over." Heather appeared in the hallway, looking tired but smiling. "Kids, let Aunt Abby at least get through the door before you bombard her." I hugged my sister, noting the dark circles under her eyes. "You okay? You look exhausted." "Just the usual holiday chaos," she replied with a wave of her hand. "Come in, Mom's been cooking all day." Dinner was pleasant enough, with my father discussing local politics and my mother proudly showing off the handmade stockings she'd created for each grandchild. Brian was quieter than usual, checking his phone repeatedly under the table, a behavior that seemed to irritate Heather. The children chattered about school, friends, and their Christmas wish lists. It was during dessert, my mother's traditional apple pie, that Heather cleared her throat and smiled broadly. "Brian and I have some exciting news," she announced, reaching for her husband's hand. He startled slightly before taking it, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "We've booked a Caribbean cruise for Christmas. 10 days of sun, sand, and relaxation." "How wonderful," my mother exclaimed. "You two deserve a getaway." My father nodded approvingly. "Good for you." "Which islands?" As Heather detailed their itinerary, I felt a familiar sense of dread building. Sure enough, after describing the luxury cabin and gourmet dining options, she turned to me with a practiced, casual air. "And Abby will watch the kids while we're gone, from the 23rd through New Year's Day." "It's perfect timing since you're always off work during that period anyway." The table fell silent. I put down my fork deliberately, the clink against the plate sounding unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. "No," I said calmly, "I won't be able to do that." Heather's smile froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I have plans for the holidays. I've booked a trip to Colorado. I'll be leaving on the 24th and returning on the 2nd. But you can cancel it," she said, as if stating an obvious fact. "This is important." I took a deep breath. "My plans are important to me, Heather. I'm not available to babysit." "I'm sorry you assumed I would be without asking me first." Brian studied his pie with intense focus. My mother's expression shifted from confusion to disapproval. "Abigail," she began in her warning tone, the one she'd used when we were children misbehaving in church. "This is family we're talking about." "Yes, it is," I agreed. "And in a healthy family, people respect each other's boundaries and don't make presumptions about others' availability." Heather's face flushed. "Boundaries? We're not coworkers, Abby, we're sisters. I need this break. You have no idea how stressful it is being a full-time mom. You're right, I don't. But that doesn't obligate me to provide childcare whenever it's convenient for you. Especially not when you don't even ask. You just announce it as a done deal. You're being incredibly selfish right now, Heather snapped, her voice rising. You only ever think about yourself. Actually, I think about everyone in this family. I think about how I've canceled plans, lost money on non-refundable bookings, and rearranged my life repeatedly to accommodate last-minute babysitting requests. I think about how no one ever asks what I might need or want. My father's face darkened. That's enough, Abigail. Your sister has 3 children to raise. The least you can do is help out during the holidays. Dad, I do help out. I'm happy to help when I'm asked respectfully and given enough notice to plan accordingly. But that's not what's happening here. So you're just going to let them cancel their cruise? My mother asked incredulously. After they've already paid for it. They booked a cruise without confirming childcare arrangements first. That's not my responsibility to fix. Heather pushed back her chair abruptly. I can't believe how callous you're being. What am I supposed to do with the kids? There are many options, I replied evenly. You could take them with you. Many cruise lines have excellent children's programs. You could ask Mom and Dad. You could hire a professional sitter. You could reschedule for a time when you have childcare lined up. This is the only time that worked with Brian's schedule. Heather was nearly shouting now. The children had gone very quiet, their eyes wide. Mason had a protective arm around Caleb, whose lower lip was trembling. I stood up, keeping my voice calm for the children's sake. I think I should go. Thank you for dinner, Mom. The food was delicious as always. Abby, please, my mother began, but I was already collecting my coat. I love you all, but I need to leave before things are said that can't be taken back. Heather, I'm sorry you're disappointed, but my answer is no. Please respect that. As I hugged each child goodbye, promising to see them before Christmas for our planned museum outing, Heather stormed out of the dining room. Brian followed after a moment's hesitation, not meeting my eyes. My parents' disappointed gazes followed me to the door. Driving home through the dark winter night, I alternated between waves of guilt and righteous anger. The guilt was familiar. It had been my companion through years of setting even the smallest boundaries with my family. The anger was newer and in some ways more frightening. But underneath both emotions was something else, a quiet certainty that I had done the right thing for myself, even if no one else could see it. The first text came before I even reached my apartment. Mom, Abigail Elizabeth Matthews, I've never been so disappointed in you. Your sister is in tears. Call her immediately and fix this. I put my phone on silent and took a long shower, trying to wash away the tension of the evening. By the time I checked again, there were 5 more messages. Dad, your behavior tonight was unacceptable. Family supports family. Period. Heather, thanks for ruining everything. The kids were looking forward to staying with you. Mason is asking if you hate them now. Mom, I raised you better than this. I don't understand the selfish phase you're going through. Dad, your mother is upset. Call us. Aunt Dorothy, heard about the dinner drama. You know your sister needs support. Reconsider, dear. I silenced all notifications and crawled into bed, emotionally drained. The next morning, I woke to 3 missed calls from my mother and a voicemail from Heather that I couldn't bring myself to listen to. At work, I tried to focus on the major year-end marketing campaign I was leading. Our client was a national retail chain, and the holiday season represented 60% of their annual revenue. The stakes were high, and I needed all my mental energy devoted to the project. My phone buzzed continuously throughout the day. Around noon, I finally called Laura, my best friend since college. They're in full attack mode, I told her after explaining the previous night's events. Mom's playing the disappointed parent card, Dad's being authoritarian, and now the extended family is weighing in. Good for you for holding your ground, Laura said firmly. It's about time. Do they know about your Colorado trip? I mentioned it, but they acted like it was something I made up on the spot to avoid babysitting. Well, I for one am thrilled you're finally taking that solo vacation we've been talking about for years. Which resort did you book again? I described the ski lodge in Aspen, the spa treatments I'd splurged on, and the photography workshop I'd enrolled in. Laura made appropriate sounds of approval and envy. "This is exactly what you need, Abby. Don't let them guilt you out of it." "I won't, I promised." "Not this time." The pressure intensified over the next few days. My mother called my office, something she'd never done before. My father sent an email, his preferred method of serious communication, outlining my familial obligations in bullet points. My aunt sent a Christmas card with a pointed note about the importance of family during the holidays. The most painful message came from Mason. A text from Heather's phone, but clearly dictated by my 9-year-old nephew. "Aunt Abby, we are sad you don't want to spend Christmas with us. We promise to be good." That one nearly broke me. I called Heather immediately. Using the children to manipulate me as a new low, I said when she answered. "I didn't make him send that," she replied defensively. "He asked to text you himself." "Heather, please. Don't put them in the middle of this. It's not fair to them." "You know what's not fair? That my children won't have a Christmas because their aunt is too selfish to help out." I took a deep breath. "They will have a Christmas. You could take them on the cruise or reschedule. The cruise is non-refundable and Brian can't get time off any other time. You know his firm is strict about vacation days. Then take the kids with you. They would love the ocean. It's an adults-only cruise, Abby. No one under 18. I frowned. "Then why did you book it without confirming childcare first?" "Because you've always watched them before," she exclaimed. "How was I supposed to know you'd suddenly decide to be unavailable?" By asking me before booking, I replied evenly. "Look, I'm sorry you're in this position, but I've made my decision. I'm going to Colorado for Christmas." After hanging up, I blocked all family numbers temporarily to focus on finalizing my travel arrangements. I upgraded my flight to first class, a Christmas gift to myself, and scheduled a car service to take me to the airport on the 24th. I made dinner reservations at the resort's gourmet restaurant for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. For the first time in years, I was looking forward to the holidays. A week before Christmas, I met Laura for our traditional gift exchange over brunch. She handed me a small package containing a beautiful leather-bound travel journal. "For your first solo Christmas adventure," she explained. "To document all the wonderful experiences you'll have." I blinked back unexpected tears. "Thank you. It's perfect." "Have you heard anything more from Hurricane Heather?" she asked, sipping her mimosa. "She actually called yesterday and seemed resigned. Said they were looking into other options and that she understood I had made my plans." It was weird, honestly. Almost too easy after all the drama. Laura raised an eyebrow. "That doesn't sound like your sister. Be careful, Abby." I laughed. "What's she going to do? Force the kids on me? I'm literally leaving town." 2 days before Christmas, I had a final conversation with Heather. She called while I was wrapping presents for the children, which I planned to drop off the following day. "So you're really going through with this Colorado trip?" she asked, her voice oddly calm. "Yes, I am. My flight leaves at 8 a.m. on Christmas Eve." "I see." There was a pause. "Well, we've made other arrangements, so it's fine." "Oh? That's great. What did you decide to do with the kids?" "Don't worry about it. It's handled." Something about her tone made me uneasy. "Heather, the kids are okay, right? You're not leaving them with someone unsuitable." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Of course not. Anyway, Merry Christmas, I guess. Enjoy your ski trip." Before I could press further, she hung up. I stared at my phone, that feeling of unease growing. But then I reminded myself, this wasn't my problem to solve. Heather was an adult with resources. She would figure it out. I returned to my packing, carefully selecting outfits for each day of my vacation. For once, Christmas would be about what I wanted, what I needed. No one else's expectations or demands. At least, that was the plan. Christmas Eve arrived with a light dusting of snow over Boston, just enough to make the city look magical without disrupting travel plans. My flight was scheduled for 8 a.m., which meant I needed to leave for the airport by 5:30. I'd been packed for days, but I still found myself double-checking my suitcase, making sure I had everything I needed for a week in Colorado. Passport, ski gear, camera, hiking boots, dressy outfit for Christmas dinner. all present and accounted for. I ordered Chinese food for dinner, another small rebellion against traditional Christmas Eve fare, and settled in to watch a holiday movie that had nothing to do with family obligations. My out-of-office email was set, my plants were watered, and my neighbor had agreed to check on my cat, Fitzgerald, while I was away. Everything was perfect. At precisely 9:07 p.m., my doorbell rang. I frowned, not expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw nothing. Cautiously, I opened the door, chain still latched. 3 small figures stood in the hallway, bundled in winter coats, hats pulled low over their faces. Suitcases and backpacks surrounded them like a barricade. "Surprise, Aunt Abby," Mason said quietly, his breath visible in the cold corridor. "Merry Christmas." I closed the door, unlatched the chain with shaking hands, and opened it fully. Mason, Lily, and Caleb looked up at me with expressions ranging from apologetic, Mason, to excited, Lily, to tearful, Caleb. "What on earth?" I managed. "Where are your parents?" "They dropped us off downstairs," Mason explained, shifting uncomfortably. "Mom said to tell you they already left for the cruise, and their phones won't work on the ship." I stepped into the hallway, looking frantically toward the elevators as if Heather and Brian might materialize. "They just left you here? Alone?" Mason nodded solemnly. "Dad waited until we got inside the building. We took the elevator up ourselves." "He said we're big kids now," Lily added proudly. Caleb's lower lip trembled. "I don't feel like a big kid, Aunt Abby. I'm cold and I need to pee." I ushered them inside, operating on autopilot. "Bathroom's down the hall, Caleb. You know where it is. Mason, help your brother if he needs it. Lily, let's get those coats off." As I helped Lily with her zipper, my mind raced. They had actually done it. They had dumped their children on my doorstep and fled, knowing I was leaving town in the morning. It was manipulative, irresponsible, and possibly illegal. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. I called Heather's number. Straight to voicemail. Brian's number. The same. My parents' house. No answer. "Mason," I called, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did Mom and Dad know about this plan?" He appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. "Grandma packed our Christmas outfits. And Grandpa helped put our suitcases in the car." "Of course." The whole family was in on it. I sank onto the couch, trying to process what was happening. Lily climbed up beside me, her small hand patting my arm. "Don't be sad, Aunt Abby. We brought our own toothbrushes this time." I managed a weak smile. That's good, Lily." Caleb returned from the bathroom and immediately made a beeline for Fitzgerald, who had been watching the proceedings with typical feline disdain. Before I could stop him, Caleb had buried his face in Fitzgerald's fur. "No, Caleb, wait. Too late." Caleb's allergic reaction was immediate. His eyes began to water, and he let out a series of sneezes. Red blotches appeared on his cheeks and neck. "Oh God," I muttered, jumping up. "Where's your allergy medicine?" "In my backpack," Mason said, already digging through it. "But Mom said we were almost out and you'd need to get more." Of course she did. I found the children's Benadryl bottle in Mason's backpack. 1 dose left. I administered it to Caleb while mentally calculating how quickly I could get to a pharmacy. "Okay, everyone listen," I said, gathering the children around me. "I need to make some calls and figure this out. Mason, can you help Lily and Caleb get into their pajamas? I'm going to order pizza for dinner." "Pizza on Christmas Eve?" Lily's eyes widened. "Mom never lets us have pizza on special days." "Well, this is a very special day," I replied grimly. While the children changed, I called Laura. "They did what?" she exclaimed after I explained the situation. "They abandoned their children on my doorstep, knowing full well I have a flight in the morning," I repeated, pacing my living room. "I can't reach them, I can't reach my parents, and Caleb's already having an allergic reaction to Fitzgerald. That is beyond messed up, Abby. Have you called the police?" I hesitated. "No, they're just kids, Laura. I can't have them picked up by the police on Christmas Eve." "I'm not saying call child services. Just file a report so there's documentation of what Heather and Brian did." "I'll think about it. Right now I need to get more allergy medicine for Caleb and figure out what to do about my flight." "Your flight," Laura repeated. "Oh, Abby. I know, I said quietly. I can't leave 3 children alone, but I also can't take them to Colorado with me. I don't have their documents, permission, nothing. So you're canceling your trip. I don't see that I have a choice. After hanging up, I called the nearest 24-hour pharmacy to confirm they had children's allergy medication in stock. Then I ordered pizza, explained to the kids that we needed to run a quick errand, and bundled everyone back into their coats. The pharmacy trip was mercifully quick, though Caleb's sneezing had intensified despite the medication. The pharmacist recommended keeping him away from the cat as much as possible, easier said than done in my one-bedroom apartment. Back home, we ate pizza while I made call after call. The cruise line confirmed that the Independence of the Seas had indeed departed that afternoon with Heather and Brian Matthews aboard. No, they couldn't be reached directly. No, the ship wouldn't return to port for 10 days. My airline confirmed what I already knew: my non-refundable first-class ticket was now worthless. The resort in Aspen was sympathetic, but equally firm about their cancellation policy. By the time the children were settled into makeshift beds, Mason and Caleb on the pull-out sofa, Lily in my bed with me, I had lost over $3,000 and my first solo vacation in years. As I searched through the children's suitcases, another unpleasant reality became clear. Heather had packed the bare minimum: a few changes of clothes, pajamas, toothbrushes. No Christmas presents. No special toys or comfort items. Not even adequate winter clothing for Boston in December. Mason's backpack contained his school homework, a science project due after the break, with a note from his teacher about materials needed. Lily had brought her favorite stuffed unicorn, but nothing else to entertain her for 10 days. Caleb's backpack held only a coloring book with most of the pages already filled. Once the children were asleep, I allowed myself a brief, silent breakdown in the bathroom. Tears of frustration and anger flowed freely as I pressed a towel to my face to muffle the sound. Then I washed my face, took a deep breath, and started making lists. Things the children would need. Food to buy. Activities to plan. And perhaps most importantly, evidence to document. I took photos of the children's meager luggage, screenshots of my flight and resort cancellations, and saved the voicemails from Heather and my parents. I didn't know what I was going to do with this evidence, but something told me I might need it. As I finally crawled into bed beside Lily's small, warm body, I thought about the Christmas morning that awaited us. No presents under my non-existent tree. No special breakfast planned. Nothing to make the day magical for 3 children who deserved so much better than being pawns in an adult power struggle. My last thought before falling into an exhausted sleep was a determination. Somehow, I would salvage this Christmas. Not for Heather, not for my parents, but for Mason, Lily, and Caleb. They weren't responsible for any of this, and they wouldn't suffer for it if I could help it. I woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of crying. Disoriented, I reached for the bedside lamp, momentarily confused by the small body curled next to me. Lily. The events of the previous evening came rushing back as I heard the crying again, Caleb, from the living room. I slipped out of bed carefully, trying not to wake Lily, and hurried to the living room. Mason was sitting up on the pull-out sofa, awkwardly patting his brother's back. Caleb's face was flushed, his eyes swollen from both tears and his allergic reaction. He woke up and got scared because he didn't know where he was, Mason explained, his young face serious in the dim light. And he says his throat feels funny. Alarm shot through me. Funny how, Caleb? Like it's hard to breathe. Caleb nodded miserably, a wheezing sound accompanying his next breath. We need to get him away from Fitzgerald, I said, immediately lifting Caleb. And he needs more medicine. I carried Caleb to the bathroom, as far from my cat as possible in the small apartment, and gave him another dose of the allergy medication. His wheezing concerned me. I knew allergic reactions could escalate quickly. Mason, keep an eye on your brother. I'm going to move Fitzgerald to the bedroom and close the door. By the time I had relocated my indignant cat and returned to the bathroom, Lily had joined her brothers, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Why's everyone awake? She mumbled. Is it Christmas yet? Not yet, sweetie, I replied, checking Caleb's breathing. The wheezing seemed to be subsiding, but his skin was still covered in hives. "We're just dealing with Caleb's cat allergy. Should we call Mom?" Mason asked quietly. I hesitated. "Your mom and dad are on the cruise ship now, buddy. We can't reach them by phone." "Oh." His face fell. "Right." Caleb looked up at me with watery eyes. "I want Mommy." "I know you do, sweetheart," I said, stroking his hair. "But you've got me, and I'm going to take good care of you." Once Caleb's breathing had normalized, I settled the children back to sleep, all three of them in my bed this time, with the bedroom door firmly closed to keep Fitzgerald out. I took the sofa, though sleep eluded me. My 8 a.m. flight came and went as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to formulate a plan. By 7 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely and started making calls. Laura answered on the first ring, despite the early hour. "How are you holding up?" "Barely," I admitted. "Caleb had an allergic reaction in the night. He's better now, but I'm worried about keeping him here with the cat." "Bring them to my place," Laura offered immediately. "I've got the space and no pets." "You're a lifesaver. But I hate to impose on your Christmas. Tim and I weren't doing anything special anyway. His family is in California, and mine is in Chicago. We'd love the company." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you. Really." My next call was to the cruise line again, hoping for better luck with a different representative. This time, I emphasized the medical emergency with Caleb's allergies. "I understand your concern," the representative said sympathetically, "but we simply have no way to contact passengers directly unless it's a life-or-death situation involving immediate family." "These are their children," I stressed. "Abandoned on my doorstep. Doesn't that qualify?" "Ma'am, without official documentation of guardianship or a police report." "Fine. Thank you for your time." I hung up, frustration mounting. Next, I tried my parents again. This time, my mother answered, her voice artificially bright. "Merry Christmas Eve, Abigail. Are you enjoying your time with the children?" "Mom," I said, fighting to keep my voice level, "did you know what Heather and Brian were planning?" A pause. "I don't know what you mean. Please don't lie to me." "Mason said you packed their Christmas outfits. You knew they were being dropped at my apartment despite my explicit refusal to babysit." Another, longer pause. "We thought once you saw the children, you'd reconsider your vacation. Family should be together at Christmas, Abigail." "So you helped Heather abandon her children as some sort of manipulation tactic? Do you have any idea how irresponsible that was?" "Caleb had a serious allergic reaction to my cat last night. He could barely breathe." "Oh dear," my mother said, sounding genuinely concerned. "Is he all right?" "He is now, no thanks to any of you." "Where are Heather and Brian really, Mom? Are they actually on that cruise?" "Of course they are. Why would you think otherwise?" "Because responsible parents don't abandon their children without proper arrangements for their care." "You're their aunt," my mother replied, as if that explained everything. "And you've always watched them before." After being asked, Mom. "Not like this. Never like this." I could hear my father in the background, asking who was calling. My mother covered the phone, their muffled conversation inaudible. When she returned, her voice was cooler. "Your father and I are about to leave for Christmas Eve service. We're having dinner with friends afterward, but we could come collect the children tomorrow afternoon if you're that inconvenienced by them." "That's not," I stopped, took a deep breath. "I'm not inconvenienced by the children. I love them. I'm angry at the adults who put them in this position. Who made them feel like burdens to be passed around." "No one said anything about burdens," my mother replied stiffly. "Actions speak louder than words, Mom." I sighed. "Look, the kids are fine with me for now. I'll figure something out." After hanging up, I checked on the children, still sleeping peacefully, and started researching. First, I looked up Massachusetts laws regarding child abandonment. Then I contacted Jessica, Laura's sister who practiced family law. Technically, this could be considered abandonment, she confirmed after I explained the situation. But since they left the children with a family member who is caring for them, it's a gray area legally. If you wanted to pursue it, you'd need to file a police report and potentially get child services involved. "I don't want to traumatize the kids," I said. "But I need Heather and Brian to understand they can't do this again." Document everything, Jessica advised. Dates, times, text messages, photos of the kids' arrival. Keep receipts for any expenses you incur. If nothing else, you could pursue civil action to recover those costs. By the time the children woke up, I had a plan, or at least the beginnings of one. First, we would go to Laura's pet-free apartment. Second, we would salvage Christmas for 3 kids who deserved better than they'd gotten. The rest could wait. Over breakfast, frozen waffles, the only kid-friendly food in my kitchen, I broke the news as positively as I could. We're going to have a little adventure today, I told them. We're going to stay at Aunt Laura's house because her place is better for Caleb's allergies. Who's Aunt Laura? Lily asked through a mouthful of waffle. She's my best friend, and she's very excited to meet you all. Mason studied me with those 2 perceptive eyes. Is Mom coming back soon? I hesitated, then decided on honesty. Your mom and dad will be on their cruise until after New Year's. But we're going to have a wonderful Christmas together, I promise. What about presents? Lily asked, concern clouding her face. Will Santa know we're at Aunt Laura's instead of home or your house? I happen to have a direct line to Santa, I assured her. He'll find you, don't worry. Caleb, still subdued from his allergic episode, looked up. I didn't bring Bear. He's still at home. Bear was Caleb's beloved stuffed animal, a constant companion since infancy. The fact that Heather hadn't packed it spoke volumes. We'll get you a special friend to keep you company until you're back with Bear, I promised. After breakfast, I packed an overnight bag for myself while the kids gathered their things. Mason approached me as I was zipping my suitcase. Aunt Abby, he said quietly, I'm sorry we ruined your trip. My heart squeezed painfully. You didn't ruin anything, Mason. None of this is your fault, do you understand? The adults made some poor decisions, but that has nothing to do with you or your brother and sister. He didn't look convinced. Mom said you didn't want to be with us for Christmas. That you wanted to go skiing instead. I knelt to his level, looking directly into his serious young eyes. That is absolutely not true. I love spending time with you 3. I just wanted your mom and dad to ask me properly instead of assuming and making demands. It was never about not wanting to be with you. Promise? His voice was small. I promise. I pulled him into a hug, fighting back tears. Now, let's get everyone ready for our Christmas adventure. Laura's apartment was a spacious 2-bedroom in Cambridge, decorated with tasteful holiday touches, a real tree in the corner, twinkling lights around the windows, a bowl of ornaments on the coffee table. Her boyfriend, Tim, was a tall, good-natured man who immediately offered to help carry the children's bags. Welcome to Christmas Central, Laura greeted us warmly. I've got hot chocolate with marshmallows ready to go. The children, initially shy, quickly warmed up under Laura's enthusiastic attention. While they sipped hot chocolate, Laura pulled me into the kitchen. You look terrible, she informed me bluntly. Thanks, I replied dryly. It's been a rough 18 hours. What's the plan now? I glanced toward the living room, making sure the children were out of earshot. First, I need to go shopping. These kids have no presents, Laura. Nothing. And barely enough clothes for a few days. Tim and I already talked about that. He's going to take the kids to the park while we hit the stores. The mall's open until 6. I blinked back tears. I don't deserve you. Nonsense. Now, what else? Have you decided what to do about Heather and Brian? I'm documenting everything. Jessica gave me some advice about potential legal options. But honestly, I'm too angry to think clearly about that right now. I just want to get through the next few days and make sure the kids are okay. Fair enough. One crisis at a time. The shopping expedition was a whirlwind of last-minute gift buying. We focused on necessities disguised as presents, warm clothing, books, art supplies, plus a few special items, a science kit for Mason, a jewelry-making set for Lily, and a stuffed elephant for Caleb that Laura insisted on calling Christmas Bear. Now, Laura said as we loaded our purchases into her car, what about Christmas dinner? Tim and I usually just do Chinese takeout, but we could cook something traditional if you think the kids would prefer it. I considered this. Actually, I think they might enjoy a break from tradition. Their Christmas meals are usually very formal affairs at my parents' house. Chinese food and a movie marathon might be the perfect change. Chinese food and Christmas movies it is, then. By the time we returned to the apartment, Tim had the children laughing and engaged in an elaborate game involving cushion forts. After dinner, pizza, another treat rarely allowed in Heather's house, we helped the children hang stockings that Laura had miraculously produced from a storage closet. Santa doesn't come until you're asleep, I reminded them as bedtime approached. But how will he know what we want? Lily worried. We didn't get to tell him at the mall this year. I have a special Santa hotline, Laura interjected smoothly. Why don't you each tell me your most important wish, and I'll call it in while you brush your teeth? The children whispered their wishes to Laura while I prepared the sofa bed and air mattress in the second bedroom. As I tucked them in, Caleb's breathing was clear and normal, his skin free from hives. He clutched his new elephant tightly. Is this our home now? He asked sleepily. No, sweetheart, I replied, stroking his hair. This is just for a little while, until your mom and dad come back. I like it here, he mumbled as his eyes drifted closed. I sat with them until all three were asleep, then joined Laura and Tim in the living room, where they were quietly arranging presents under the tree. You're both saints, I told them, sinking into an armchair. I don't know how I would have managed this without you. That's what friends are for, Tim said simply. Laura handed me a glass of wine. Now, tell us what those kids whispered to me. Mason wants a telescope, easy enough. We got him that star projector thing that's close. Lily wants a real unicorn, which is trickier, but I think the stuffed one we got plus the unicorn craft kit will satisfy her. And Caleb? I asked. Laura's face softened. He said he just wants everyone to stop being mad. He thinks it's his fault your sister left them with you. My heart broke a little more. God, what were they thinking? They weren't thinking about the kids, Tim said quietly. That's the problem. After Laura and Tim went to bed, I stayed up wrapping presents and filling stockings. As I carefully labeled each gift from Santa, I thought about Caleb's wish. Children were so perceptive, so vulnerable to the undercurrents of adult conflict. Whatever happened after this holiday, whatever confrontation awaited with Heather and my parents, I was determined that these three children would never again feel like pawns or burdens. They deserved so much better. And somehow, I would make sure they got it. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight streaming through Laura's apartment windows. I woke to the sound of hushed, excited whispers from the children's room. Do you think he came? Lily's voice carried through the door. Of course he did, Mason replied, trying to sound mature, but unable to hide his own excitement. Can we go see? Caleb asked. I checked the time, 6:30 a.m., and smiled. Slipping out of the guest room where I'd slept, I met Laura in the hallway, already clutching her coffee mug. Merry Christmas, she whispered. Ready for the stampede? As I'll ever be. Tim's still asleep. He'll join us once the volume exceeds a certain decibel level, she grinned. We positioned ourselves in the living room, where the tree was now surrounded by wrapped gifts, stockings bulging with small treats. I nodded to Laura, who called out, I think I heard something last night. Should we check if Santa came? The patter of feet was immediate, 3 pajama-clad children appearing in the doorway, faces alight with anticipation. Their expressions when they saw the tree were everything I'd hoped for: wonder, excitement, joy. He found us, Lily exclaimed, jumping up and down. Santa knew we were here. I told you he would, I replied, giving her a hug. Merry Christmas, Munchkins. What followed was a flurry of torn wrapping paper, exclamations of delight, and heartfelt thank yous. Mason was thrilled with his science kit and star projector. Lily immediately opened her jewelry-making set and started creating a bracelet. Caleb wouldn't let go of his new elephant, even while opening other gifts. Tim emerged midway through the unwrapping, bearing fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls he'd secretly prepared the night before. The adults exchanged our own small gifts: books, wine, a scarf Laura had been eyeing, but the real joy was watching the children. After breakfast, while the kids were absorbed in their new toys, my phone rang. It was Karen, my neighbor from across the hall in my apartment building. Merry Christmas, Abby. I just wanted to check how Fitzgerald is doing. I stopped by this morning to feed him as promised. He's fine, Karen, thank you so much. I'm sorry for the last-minute pet sitting request. No problem at all. Hey, I noticed the children's things in your apartment. Everything okay? I hesitated, then gave her an abbreviated version of events. Karen, a retired elementary school teacher, was appropriately appalled. Those poor children. And poor you, having your holiday plans appended like that. We're making the best of it, I assured her. Listen, she said after a moment, I have more experience with children than I know what to do with. If you need an extra pair of hands over the next week, I'm happy to help. My own grandchildren aren't visiting until mid-January. Karen, that's incredibly kind of you. It's nothing. Besides, it sounds like you could use some support from actual adults who respect boundaries. After hanging up, I relayed Karen's offer to Laura, who nodded approvingly. The more the merrier. And it might be good for the kids to have another caring adult around. By midday, the initial excitement had settled into a comfortable rhythm. The children played with their gifts while the adults prepared a simple lunch. It was as we were clearing the dishes that Mason approached me with an unusually serious expression. Aunt Abby, can I talk to you? Privately? Of course, buddy. We went to the guest room, where Mason sat on the edge of the bed, fidgeting with the hem of his new sweater. What's on your mind? I asked gently. He took a deep breath. Mom and Dad fight all the time. That's why they wanted to go on the cruise. To try to fix things. I felt a chill. They told you that? He shook his head. I heard them talking. Dad wanted to cancel the cruise because they couldn't find anyone to watch us. He said it was irresponsible to book it in the first place. Mom said they needed this trip or they might get divorced. My heart sank. I'm sorry you heard that, Mason. That must have been scary. Is that why they left us here? Even though you said no? I chose my words carefully. Adults sometimes make poor decisions when they're scared or desperate. What your parents did wasn't right, but I think they were trying to save their marriage. That doesn't excuse their behavior, but it might explain it. Are they going to get divorced? I don't know, buddy. But whatever happens between your mom and dad, they both love you and Lily and Caleb very much. And so do I. He nodded slowly. It's nicer here. Everyone's not yelling all the time. The implications of that simple statement were heartbreaking. I pulled Mason into a hug, which he accepted without his usual preteen reluctance. After our talk, I found Laura and shared what Mason had told me. Her expression darkened. That explains some things, but it doesn't excuse them. No, I agreed. But it changes my perspective a bit. These kids might need more stability than I realized. Throughout the afternoon, more pieces of the puzzle emerged. Lily, while creating artwork with her new supplies, drew a picture of her family standing far apart from each other, with storm clouds overhead. Caleb mentioned casually that Daddy sleeps on the couch a lot. By evening, when Laura's sister Jessica arrived with her husband for Christmas dinner, I had a clearer picture of what these children had been experiencing at home. Over Chinese food and Christmas movies, Jessica pulled me aside. Laura told me about your conversation with Mason. It sounds like there might be some significant issues in their home environment. I'm getting that impression, I admitted. I'm not sure what to do with this information. Document it, she advised. Write down what the children have said, dating each disclosure. If things escalate to a custody situation, this could be relevant. You think it could come to that? I'm not saying it will. But abandoning their children on Christmas Eve to save their marriage doesn't suggest the most stable decision-making. After Jessica left, I sat with the children to watch How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Lily curled up beside me on the couch, her head resting against my shoulder. Caleb sat on my lap, his elephant clutched to his chest. Even Mason stayed close, leaning against the arm of the sofa near me. Aunt Abby, Lily asked during a quiet moment in the film, are you still mad at Mommy and Daddy? I thought carefully before answering. I was very upset with them for leaving you at my apartment without making proper arrangements. That wasn't fair to any of us. But I'm not mad anymore. I'm concerned, and I want to make sure you three are taken care of properly. I like being with you, she said simply. You don't yell. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The next morning, Laura's doorbell rang just as we were finishing breakfast. Karen had arrived, bearing additional presents for the children and offering to take them to the local children's museum, which was open despite the holiday. I have a family membership that allows guests, she explained. And I thought you might appreciate a few hours to regroup. The children, already fond of Karen from their visits to my apartment building, were excited about the outing. After they left, Laura turned to me. What are you thinking? You have that look. I'm thinking about what these kids need, I replied slowly. And about my own boundaries. Meaning I may have been right to stand my ground about not being taken for granted, but these children need stability right now. Maybe more than Heather and Brian can provide. Laura raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I don't know yet, but I'm considering a more active role in their lives. Not just the fun aunt who visits occasionally, but someone they can truly count on. Over the next few days, a remarkable community formed around us. Karen became a regular presence, sharing her wisdom from decades of teaching. Her husband, Joe, joined us for an afternoon of building snowmen in the park. Laura's brother Michael and his wife brought their children over for a play date, giving Mason, Lily, and Caleb the chance to make new friends. My colleague Sophia stopped by with additional clothes and toys her own children had outgrown. Another neighbor from my building, David, who ran a local bakery, delivered fresh bread and cookies. Laura's parents, visiting from Chicago, embraced the children as honorary grandchildren. Through all of this, I continued documenting. Not just the evidence of abandonment, but the positive developments as well. The way Caleb's nightmares subsided after the third night. How Lily began talking about her feelings instead of acting out. Mason's gradual relaxation from hypervigilant older brother to a boy who could enjoy his own childhood. By New Year's Eve, we had established a comfortable routine. Karen would take the children for a few hours each morning while I handled work emails and calls. Afternoons were devoted to activities, museums, libraries, parks. Evenings were for games, movies, and stories. The children flourished under the structure and the consistent, calm attention of caring adults. There were still moments of sadness or uncertainty, questions about when their parents would return, worries about what would happen next, but overall, they seemed happier and more secure than when they'd first arrived on my doorstep. As we prepared for our small New Year's celebration, just Laura, Tim, the children, and me, I realized something profound. What had begun as a crisis, an unwelcome disruption to my carefully planned holiday, had transformed into something precious. I had formed a deeper bond with my niece and nephews than ever before. I had discovered strengths I didn't know I possessed. And most importantly, I had learned that sometimes the most meaningful boundaries aren't the ones that keep others out, but the ones that define what we're willing to fight for. The children were worth fighting for. And when Heather and Brian returned, I would be ready. On New Year's Eve day, exactly as the cruise itinerary had indicated, my phone rang. Heather's name flashed on the screen. I had been anticipating this call for days, rehearsing what I would say, how I would maintain my composure while making it clear that what had happened was unacceptable. "Hello, Heather," I answered, my voice steady. "Abby." She sounded tired, subdued. "We're back. The ship docked this morning." "I see. And now you'd like your children back, I presume." A pause. "Yes. We're at Mom and Dad's. We can come get them, or if you're in the city, we can meet somewhere." "We have a lot to discuss first," I said. "I can bring the children to Mom and Dad's this evening, around 7. But you, Brian, and I need to have a conversation. Alone." Another pause. "Fine. I'll have Mom take the kids to get ice cream or something." "Good. See you at 7. I spent the afternoon helping the children pack their things and preparing them for the reunion with their parents. I was careful to maintain a neutral tone, not wanting to add to their anxiety. "Will we see you again soon, Aunt Abby?" Lily asked as she folded her new clothes. "Very soon," I promised. "In fact, I'm going to talk to your mom and dad about having you visit me regularly. Would you like that?" All three nodded enthusiastically. "Are they still mad at each other?" Mason asked quietly when his siblings were out of earshot. "I don't know, buddy. But whatever is happening between them isn't your responsibility. Your job is just to be a kid, okay?" He nodded, not entirely convinced, but seeming somewhat relieved. At precisely 7 o'clock, we arrived at my parents' house. My mother opened the door, her expression a mixture of relief and wariness. "The children look well," she commented as they rushed past her into the house. "They are well," I replied. "No thanks to the adults who abandoned them." My father appeared in the hallway behind her. "Abigail, let's not start with accusations." "I'm stating facts, Dad, not making accusations." I stepped inside, removing my coat. "Where are Heather and Brian?" "In the kitchen," my mother replied. As promised, my mother gathered the children and took them out for ice cream, despite the January cold. My father, after some pointed looks from me, reluctantly joined them. In the kitchen, Heather and Brian sat at the table, not quite looking at each other. Heather's tan contrasted with the dark circles under her eyes. Brian looked pale and drawn. I placed my purse on the table and withdrew a folder containing all the documentation I had compiled: photographs, receipts, notes from our time together, printouts of text messages. "Let me be very clear," I began, my voice calm but firm. "What you did was child abandonment. You left 3 children at my door with minimal supplies, knowing I had travel plans, without confirming I would be there or willing to care for them. You turned off your phones and made yourselves unreachable for over a week." Heather opened her mouth, but I held up my hand. "I'm not finished." Caleb had a serious allergic reaction to my cat that first night. He could barely breathe. I had no medical authorization to treat him, no insurance information, nothing. "Mason has overheard your arguments about divorce and believes he needs to protect his siblings from your fighting. Lily has been drawing pictures of your family with storm clouds overhead. Your children are suffering." Brian looked stricken. "We didn't know. You didn't ask," I cut in. "You were so focused on your cruise to save your marriage that you didn't consider the impact on your children." Heather's eyes filled with tears. "How do you know about that?" "Mason overheard you." "Children absorb everything, Heather. They might not understand it all, but they feel it." Brian ran a hand over his face. "God, we've made a mess of things." "Yes, you have," I agreed. "Now, I have 2 options here. Option 1, I file a police report for child abandonment and contact Child Protective Services. I have all the documentation I need." I tapped the folder. "Doorbell camera footage of you dropping them off, text messages, photographs, witness statements." Heather blanched. "You wouldn't." "I absolutely would, if I thought it was in the best interest of those children," I replied evenly. "But I'm hoping option 2 will be sufficient." "What's option 2? Brian asked cautiously. "You both get professional help. Marriage counseling, family therapy, parenting classes, whatever it takes to create a stable, healthy environment for your children. And you agree to a formal visitation schedule with me, where the children spend regular time in my home, with proper planning and preparation." Heather stared at me, then at the folder of evidence. "You're serious. Deadly serious. Those children deserve better than what they've been getting. I love them too much to stand by and watch them be traumatized by adult dysfunction." Brian looked at Heather, then back to me. "She's right. We need help." Heather's face crumpled. "Everything's such a mess. We fight constantly. The finances are a disaster. Brian works all the time. I'm overwhelmed with the kids. I thought the cruise would fix things, but we just fought in a nicer location." "Marriage isn't fixed by a vacation," I said, softening slightly. "It takes consistent work and communication. And sometimes, professional guidance." "I've been saying we should try counseling," Brian admitted. But Heather was resistant. "I was afraid," Heather whispered. "Afraid they'd tell us we should divorce. That we're beyond fixing." I reached across the table and took my sister's hand. "Heather, the bravest thing you can do is face the truth, whatever it is. If your marriage can be saved, counseling will help you save it. If it can't, counseling will help you end it in the healthiest way possible for the children." After a long moment, Heather nodded. "Okay, we'll do it. The counseling, the visitation schedule, all of it." "I have some recommendations," I said, pulling out another paper from my folder. "Jessica, Laura's sister, is a family law attorney. She suggested these therapists who specialize in family systems." Brian took the list, looking slightly stunned. "You really came prepared." "I've had a week to think about this. And I've had a lot of help. The kind of help you could have too, if you'd asked for it properly instead of dumping your responsibilities on others. We spent the next hour outlining specific agreements. The children would visit me one weekend each month, with proper preparation and supplies. Heather and Brian would begin marriage counseling within 2 weeks. Family therapy would start the following month. I would receive copies of medical information, school contacts, and emergency authorizations for the children. By the time my parents returned with 3 ice cream sticky children, we had a signed agreement. Not legally binding, perhaps, but a concrete commitment to change. The children's delight at seeing their parents was tempered with caution, particularly from Mason. I watched closely as they interacted, relieved to see genuine affection despite the underlying tensions. My parents observed our negotiations with a mixture of confusion and grudging respect. "You've really thought this through," my father commented as I prepared to leave. "I have," I replied simply. "Because those children deserve adults who put their needs first." My mother touched my arm hesitantly. "We were wrong, Abigail. About how we handled this. About a lot of things." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was more acknowledgement than I'd ever received before. "Yes, you were. But we can all do better going forward." As I said goodbye to the children, promising to see them soon for our first official weekend visit, Caleb clung to me tightly. "Don't forget Christmas Bear," I reminded him, making sure his new elephant was securely tucked under his arm. "I won't," he promised solemnly. He's family now too. The weeks that followed brought significant changes. True to their word, Heather and Brian began counseling. Our parents, somewhat chastened by the entire experience, became more supportive of both their daughters in different ways. The children thrived under the new arrangement, looking forward to their weekends with me while also enjoying a more peaceful home environment. As for me, I did eventually reschedule my Colorado trip for spring break with 3 special guests in tow. Mason, Lily, and Caleb experienced their first ski lessons, gazed in wonder at mountain vistas, and created memories that had nothing to do with parental conflict or family dysfunction. Standing on that mountain, watching Mason help Caleb navigate the bunny slope while Lily fearlessly zoomed ahead, I reflected on how differently things had turned out from what I'd planned. My boundary setting had led not to greater distance from my family, but to a healthier, more intentional closeness. By refusing to be taken for granted, I had ultimately created space for authentic connection and growth. The crisis that began on Christmas Eve had transformed all of us. Heather and Brian were slowly rebuilding their relationship on more honest terms. My parents were learning to respect my choices. The children were experiencing the security of adults who communicated clearly and kept their promises. And I had discovered that sometimes standing your ground isn't about keeping others away, it's about creating the foundation for something stronger to be built. Have you ever had to take a stand that initially seemed to create conflict, but ultimately led to positive change? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might be navigating their own boundary challenges with family. Remember, standing firm doesn't mean standing alone. Sometimes it's the first step toward building the support system we all deserve. Thank you for joining me on this unexpected Christmas journey, and I wish you all the courage to set the boundaries you need in your own lives.